We are all in a daze, not in an obvious apparent way, but a quiet, passive one. Welcome to another episode of Bring Back Focus. I'm your host, Dipesh Jain. Today, I want to talk about something that happened a few weeks ago and how it changed how I think about attention. So, a couple of weeks ago, I was traveling back from a small university town. I'd gone there for a career fair. It was late. I was on a train. I tried to sleep because I was tired, but I just couldn't. It wasn't that anything was bothering me. I just probably wasn't sleepy. Normally, in that kind of a situation, I would take my phone out, read my messages, respond to them, read books or something. But I didn't because I actually wanted to sleep and I didn't want the phone with me. So I stayed awake and started observing people around me. That's when I realized something that I almost never do. So, to set the context, this wasn't a busy or a chaotic commute. The train was quiet. There was a lot of students, a few families, some older passengers, and everybody was just sitting there passing time, I guess. Since I wasn't on my phone, I had nothing else to do except people watch or look around me. And after I started noticing, a few patterns emerged. One is almost everybody was on their phone. And this wasn't surprising. Like I said, I would have been on my phone as well. But what really stood out to me wasn't the fact that they were on the phone, but how they were using them. So I realized people around me, they weren't using their phone to type messages. They weren't reading anything long. And it didn't feel like they were having conversations. They were just scrolling passively, slowly. And I know we talk a lot about doom scrolling, but what I saw was doom scrolling at a different level. If I would have taken that scenario outside of this and put it in a movie where a villain hypnotizes the audience and they just are in their command, this was exactly, it felt like that. Everybody was just passively scrolling through slowly. And it, it just really bothered me. It didn't look like they were looking for something specific. I think they were just moving through whatever the algorithm showed them next. And at some point, I stopped focusing on individual people and started paying attention to the overall behavior. What I realized was this wasn't about phone. Phones were just conduits. It was about this algorithm led attention. And this is what I want to cover today: how algorithms have taken over our attention completely. People weren't deciding what to engage with. They were just scrolling through the algorithm and were just observing whatever the algorithm gave them. And these algorithms have gotten so much better at finding things that trigger you and giving you exactly that kind of content. Their feed was deciding what they should be engaging with, one piece of content after another. And that was very disturbing to me. See, I understand using a phone intentionally is one thing. Like I get it that it's not easy for people to do that. But spending time inside an algorithm-led tree is something else altogether. As I said, you think about this as there's somebody who can control your mind, who's standing at the end of that coach and is basically controlling everybody's mind. It felt like that to me. And what struck me really wasn't that people were distracted. It was just how normal this was. It wasn't a small time filling activity. It was how the default mode is. So when you have nothing to do, this is your default mode. And, I could see there were families, there were people who knew each other next to each other, but even a lot of them were on their phones and just doom scrolling that way. Now I'm exaggerating a bit over here. I get it, but this problem is real. The more I watched it, the clearer it became that this wasn't occasional. This is how attention now moves. And that's what I meant when I said we are all in a daze. It's not that we are exhausted, it's not that we are addicted, which we are, but it's just that we are completely absent. We are absent to our own actions. We are physically present, but our minds are completely hijacked and somewhere else. And I get it. I'm not trying to argue against technology. Phones are useful and social platforms have their place. But this issue is of unconscious participation. We've all almost consented to this kind of days. And when these kind of moments are handed over to algorithms, your attention, which is your most precious asset, stops being something that we control or we actively direct. It just goes where it is pulled. And once you notice this, and do it next time when you are in a place like this, just stop what you're doing for a moment and observe people around you, and you will see this algorithm led attention happening. So, why does this rattle me so much? It is because it has become the norm today. And I don't know how many of us even realize that there is something that we should be doing against it. And what it is doing is it is making it very difficult for us to sit with ourselves, think deeply, and think clearly. And that's what really, really bothers me. And when that train ride didn't make me want to delete apps or make big changes. It wasn't revolutionary that way. It just made something so visible that was almost hiding somewhere. It's almost when you observe a pattern in a chaos, after that, all you can see is that pattern. That's what happened to me. And once you start seeing how much attention is algorithm led, so I'm, not on most social media apps, but I am on LinkedIn and pretty active on LinkedIn. And I realized I have a similar pattern there as well. I just would scroll through to see what the feed gives me. I use all excuses that this is good for work. I find context there, but at the end of the day, that is what is happening. I think once you realize this, you start noticing when do you actually want to opt in and when you don't. And I think that is probably a good place to start. Start noticing how your attention is hijacked by algorithms. Start noticing what you do when you're bored. Start noticing that. That is the first step towards making any change, to notice. So try this for yourself. Next time when you go in a public place like a commute or just a park or something, and you see people sitting around you, just observe. And I don't mean peek into their phones, uh, but just observe how they use their phones, and you will see a similar pattern. People scrolling through without any direction, just passively. I think the minute you realize, or the minute you realize this happening, you will start seeing something that I saw that day. It's that this pattern is all everywhere. It's all around us. And the way to change is to observe it and be aware about this. Thank you for your time today. This is all I had for the show. Uh, I look forward to catching you on the next episode. Thank you and have a self aware, intentional week ahead. Thanks.